start in just a minute with our very special guest, Arrash, who's developing not only a time series subnetwork, but it's actually supporting all type of streams, so continuous data, as I understand it. So we're very excited for that. And for everyone wondering, Shib will be hosting an AMA here, Ask Me Anything, in 1 hour from now. So you can just stay here, like after we're done with Teacher Tuesday, we'll be sure to have a short break between. And yeah, make sure you don't miss that either. Great. Let me post the plan for today. And oh, Mog, very nice, is recording this for everyone. I will write a short summary afterwards, but it's great that he's recording it so everyone can see. Yeah, exciting. Great. Arrash, are you with me?
In here.
Mute you. So yeah, tell me if you want to be unmuted. Okay, so we have a few topics for today. Most importantly, we will be talking about the new subnetworks coming up, and Arrash, who will hopefully get his mic sorted in a minute, will be telling us about his exciting work with the time series subnetwork, and also we're working on a scalable cross-platform request layer. It will basically allow validators to share their resources no matter what subnet they're on, as I understand it. So if you have extra request capacity, you can easily share it or sell it to someone else who wants to use the network. Arrash, are you with me?
Yeah, you hear me?
It's a bit low. Do you have any way to increase the volume?
I'm checking. Let's see. Is this better or is this loud?
It's slightly better, but still rather quiet.
Okay, let's try now. Is this better? Is that louder?
I don't know. It's about same. Like I can hear you,
I
but
see.
if you can increase sound, it's better.
How's that? Is that better?
Now it's better.
Yeah, for some reason my input device is a laptop. Okay, yeah, should be good to go if you guys can hear it right.
Great. So I'll pretty much let you take it away.
Sure.
Everyone is so curious. What are you working on with the new subnetwork?
Yeah, so I'll start with a little bit of background and then kind of jump in. So learned about Tau, I think, and Bittensor maybe about a little over a month ago. And we were already working on a lot of our own strategies. If you kind of know our background, we're in algorithmic trading. And so we're already working on our own kind of strategy to convert a lot of our trading strategies to be machine learning based. And I thought, hey, I learned about Bittensor, and I thought, why don't we, instead of trying to create our own best neural net, why don't we build a marketplace of competing neural nets to create the best trading algorithm possible. And that opened kind of a door for us to say, hey, why does it have to just be trading data? Why couldn't it be really any kind of time series based data? And then that kind of developed into, why does it have to just be time series? It could be generalized to potentially just stream data. I would say most of the cases are going to be time series based, but we don't want to have to encapsulate just a time series. But the general idea is now pretty aspirational, I would say, in what we're trying to accomplish. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think there's some noise in the background.
No, it's fine. It's no noise that I can hear.
Okay. So our goal is to essentially be able to allow any validators or anybody requesting data to pass in really any type of well, I shouldn't say any type of data, but they can essentially decide the data sets they want to pass in and help train the network on their data. And these will be, and the general idea here is to make it broad enough where it's not tied to a specific data set. So for example, if you're doing like stock prediction data, that's a very specific subnet. It's just tackling, a certain type of data with stocks, right? Or crypto or, Forex or whatever market. But when you're generalizing it, it could be audio. It could be, the data could be anomaly detection for SaaS companies. It could be building the backbone of an analytics company for consulting companies. It could be really any kind of data that you pass in, and the data is just normalized for the neural nets, the miners, to essentially learn from. And what we've done is it's really and that really opens the door to allowing the network. Like, really the goal is to allow apps to plug in as clients to be able to train the miners on whatever data sets they want to, and then help kind of guide the clients into training the data sets via specific topics. So instead of saying for example, stock prediction data would just be one topic inside of this subnetwork of a range of topics that you could be helping train the network on. Now, with something so broad and generalized and that can handle a lot of things, there's a lot of complexities, especially around if you're allowing the clients to help train the network. And so there's a lot of things there that are more on the difficulties of doing something like this. I would say the number one of the top questions is going to be, what is one of the biggest difficulties? And in my opinion, the biggest difficulty of what we're trying to do, in which you allow clients or validators to, create or help the miners learn from the data and derive information from the data, is going to be collusion. So how can you stop or be able to restrict miners from colluding with validators, with clients? And so that is a big thing that we've been really working on behind the scenes, and that's probably our number one concentration is for just the subnetwork layer is just making sure that we're able to not necessarily prevent, but hopefully detect and build enough mechanisms in it so that it deters any kind of collusion between parties. So that is, with something like this, as ambitious as it is, there's obviously difficulty, but we're definitely doing our best to handle those situations. But go ahead.
I think it's very exciting to basically decentralize the algorithms that could be used for stock prediction. So instead, if I understand correctly, instead of Bloomberg having their algorithms, BlackRock training their own algorithms, and all these institutions having their own algorithms, what you could basically do is that you could take the algorithms that are on the network, and you could use all of them or a subset of them, and based on that, plug into your own plug into your own like stock predictor or something like that. So you have like this, oh, these are 5 great algorithms that you don't have to train from scratch. You can get the diversity from it, and it will be up to date, and you like much more easily can plug it into your use case.
Yeah, so the overall idea is to not just do like we can use stock predictions as an example, where all these different clients are plugging in their own training data. They're helping train the network, and in return, they're getting kind of a response or predictions that are less focused on just their training data, right? They're more well-rounded, which is going to be a huge advantage because they've been trained against more of a variety than what they would be naturally without that. Yeah. But the big thing that we're doing is not just doing stocks. It's really enabling clients to create their own topics and collaborate with other clients in a way that I don't even know if it exists right now. And honestly, in any other kind of place where, let's just say, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with fantasy football data or just sports gambling data. But sports gambling could be its an entire own topic. And all these clients are collaborating by essentially providing data sets to train miners on how to predict sports gambling. So it could be inside of that. That's a massive topic, by the way. But inside that could be, predicting fantasy football data, fantasy basketball data. I mean, it's such a large. It could do so many things by having it be kind of broader in what it's capable of via these topics, and you don't necessarily need to pass in topics. If someone wants, a client wants to not have their data be under a topic, that's also going to be a possibility. It's just you're going to need to have enough training data to provide to the system to help it learn from what you want it to learn from, right? Like to provide something useful. But I think the real so that won't be a problem if you have a lot of data to help train. But I would say in general, like most clients will probably fall under topics, and then they can help train the network on their topic to their specific stream type. So the data is not only topic based, so miners won't only recognize data via topics, but also specific identifiers for the client and whatever data set they're passing in, what we call stream types. So it can be very specific as to the data set identified by the miner, and knowing that it's different than another data set, but generally all fall under the same topic guidance for what they're trying to address. So yeah, there's a lot of thought behind how we're designing this, and that's probably why it's going to take us a while to do and make sure we do a lot of testing that is very thorough. But we think it can be incredibly powerful because of the fact that really anybody can train the network on any topic. It's not specific to any single data set or any specific topic like stocks, for example. That would just be one minor topic in a range or sea of topics that would be trained on by the network.
That is very interesting. We have a question already from 5G. He asked, how do you plan to achieve consensus between clients?
Yeah. So consensus with UMA consensus is really independent per validator. So validators are getting requests from clients, and it's kind of first come, first serve. So that's kind of how, well, this gets into our request layer, which is going to be wildly, which is its own kind of thing. So maybe I should jump into what we're doing with our request layer. So in order for something for like this to be achievable, and what we're envisioning here, which is to allow data to be trained on, multiple topics. It could be uncategorized data, categorized data via these topics, and clients send in their own, stream types with their own data sets. We need to have something on top of the existing network. So validators are essentially receiving requests from clients and processing them through the network, communicating with miners, then passing back the data to clients. So essentially, like validators are kind of a receiving, like are the point of the network that are actually receiving requests. And we are building a request layer on top of that to interact with clients and have clients interact with the network. So you can think of it as, you know, a top layer of clients, you know, layer right below that, which is what we're calling the request layer, which is kind of relaying the messages to validators. Validators can run the request through the network, get a response back from miners, pass back to the request layer, pass back to clients. And so because they have this this layer in between, they're able to essentially see a broader subset of the data. They're able, you know, validators are able to see data from a range of topics received from a bunch of different clients. And so then consensus can be reached among all validators that are very easily that are participating in the network. And if you understand how consensus is reached through with Yuma consensus is on a per validator basis. So every validator has to reach its own kind of conclusion as to who are the good miners and the bad miners, right? For each in the network. For us, it's really going to be on a range of topics, like which ones are doing well for certain topics, which ones aren't doing well for topics, which ones are doing well for uncategorized data versus categorized data. And so we have rules that are going to be in place around how miners respond. But in general, validators are going to be able to reach consensus because they're all receiving similar types of requests from clients through this request layer.
Okay, so if I understand it correctly, is that consensus would be reached because all the validators would get requests from the same
Yes.
same pool of like end users.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and that also doesn't stop validators from sending in their own requests. They absolutely can do that because validators may want to do their own requests separate from being a client, and there's no restriction on that.
Yeah, and like you can basically decide. I want to set weights based on like this client pool, but then I have my own use case, and I will simply just not set weights from that, so I will have a great vTrust anyways.
Yeah, I think there's many ways to tackle this, but yeah, there's definitely, you know, validators can definitely send in their own requests without any issue. So yeah, I mean, I think our vision here is essentially have the biggest, probably one of the biggest usages of any time series, specifically time series prediction in any network, like all in one place. Like you can train any data, you can work and collaborate with other clients to train various on topics, and you can create your own topics. It's pretty incredible, actually, if you think about how broad this can be. I mean, the application here, because time series data is so deep in terms of what it can do. I mentioned a few examples, but you know, anomaly detection is one piece. Imagine in supply chain anomaly detection. I mean, so anomaly detection by itself is just so broad, and that could be trained on this. I mean, you could have entire analytics companies built off something like this. You could have sports gambling websites completely be powered by something like this. You could have stock prediction be completely powered by this. Not only can you, by the way, predict let's just take stocks for a second. Let's just take this scenario where you want to predict the number of, you know, the closing prices on the next 10 days of data, right? Not only could you get predictions on the next 10 closing dates, you could train the network to provide you a strategy on how to best use those 10 next closing dates, like days of data. So like it's actually mind-numbing and mind-boggling to think about potential use cases. And I don't even want to box what's possible and what can be built off something like this. I mean, even the data taken out, if you didn't want to use the network itself, you could build another subnet on top of the data to train it for some other purpose. So subnets could be built on top of this subnet, which is kind of a broader subnet, to make it more specific in some specific use case. So it's pretty cool to think about. just the applications and what could be built off something like this. So we are being very intentional. We're hoping to work really closely with the Bittensor team. We've done a lot of architecture. We've done a lot of documentation internally. None of that is external yet, but we are hoping to begin. We are doing implementation right now and working through some problems. And so we're hoping to have something out relatively soon on testnet, actually, because we believe like most of the problems that we're looking to, most of the problems that we can initially think of have been solved for. So it's just a matter of seeing if the community can kind of come up with ways to make it better, possibly, or just begin building, like thinking about apps to build. I mean, imagine your machine learning portion of whatever you're trying to build is abstracted, essentially. Like whatever you're trying to build the best neural net possible to solve any prediction problem. That's going to be abstracted away by this, ideally. And so it's really just a matter of feeding the data and knowing what data to feed, and building off of what everyone else is providing topics to create kind of a super. It's like a super network of neural nets. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It is. We have a question from Nick now, and I thought was good. What is the incentive for people to collaborate and share their data? I think he means like the people that would use the network for training it. Does this run into a prisoner's dilemma where everyone would be better off if everyone shared, but no one can trust others to do so?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea here is you're incentivized because you're going to get the best result possible. Naturally, a marketplace of competition, of miners providing you the data, is going to, again, abstract out the work necessary for you to create your own neural net to essentially do the machine learning part. So, I mean, if you want, you're going to get the best product by having the most diverse data that's being provided on a specific topic to miners who are going to do the work for you. So it's a natural incentive, because like, let's just take the scenario for us, which like, let's just, use stock prediction data. We could build our own neural net, but at the end of the day, a marketplace of competing miners, if trained properly, will provide you much better data, a much better product than you would on your own. It just naturally will happen. And so the clients that understand how a marketplace of competition will output a better result than what you can do on your own. Or you could just take the output of the network and use that output as leverage for your own neural net, however you want to approach it. But the clients that understand that are the ones that are going to want to use it. And I think over time, like more and more value will be derived, right? Because in the beginning, there's going to be hiccups. I mean, there's going to be things that, right? We have to, these guys have to, everybody has to be trained on topics. But over time, it's going to be more, the training on these miners will be more solidified on specific topics. So I think it'll be easier to see the value derived from it. But I think in the beginning, the clients that provide input are the ones that realize that a marketplace of neural nets abstracting away the work to get you the best result possible is going to be better than you doing it on your own. In terms of work, in terms of effort, in terms of money, like all three of those.
I can imagine also that oftentimes the data will not be sensitive. Like if it's stock data, it's already like open for everyone to look at, or if it's betting data, it's like open available information already.
Yeah, so that's another big thing, is because we are also providing topics, the goal kind of is to have miners provide something like more of an unsupervised learning algorithm for things that are uncategorized, right? Things that don't have a topic. Now, for things that have topics, miners can kind of take the approach of training their neural nets for those topics to try to create the best predictions possible. So they already kind of know what the general topics are, so they can start training their neural nets. And I'm sure like I know Const is working on some stuff for like pre-training and things like that. So it'll be interesting to have everything kind of work together. But the idea is that because the topics are known, miners can already work to kind of train or pre-train their models to know what kind of data to expect or how to derive patterns from the data that is being received for these topics. So it's not only that the clients are providing training data. I mean, they should be, and they are incentivized because they can get the best result possible. But it's also that the miners can know what the topics are to train on.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. 5G has another follow-up question on the topic. Why wouldn't miners pull out and run the strategies on their own after they're trained on your data? What stops the miner from competing with the clients? So, for example, if you optimize an algorithm for the network for that can be used for stock prediction or something like that, why wouldn't the miner just take the algorithm they have and use it on their own and compete with the client?
I mean, if a miner chooses to train on the network and pull out and not provide mining anymore, there's really nothing stopping them from doing that. That happens for any network, right? Like, what's the main incentive to being part of the marketplace of miners competing is to get rewarded. So you would no longer get rewarded in Tau, right? I mean, that's the kind of your goal is to be part of the network and part of this marketplace to make money from whatever product you're providing to the marketplace, right? To be the best, and by being the best, you get rewarded for it.
I can imagine also that let's say there are 5 people, different developers, and instead of them all trying to create their own trading algorithm or something to make money, betting algorithm, they would all optimize their algorithm for the network, and then people building off on top of this that can be themselves.
Yeah,
they would utilize all like the 5 algorithms that might work better than any single one.
Yes, yeah, and that's another big part of this is the responses back to the client are multiple miner responses, right? Multiple miner predictions. So it's more the power of having a marketplace and understanding the power of a marketplace, and also understanding the power of incentivized intelligence, right? Like, that's the whole point of it, is to incentivize miners to participate. Even if they have the best product, great, they'll be rewarded for it. And they can choose to, if they want to also be on the client side, receiving inputs back, they can totally do that and build their own. I mean, they can take the responses back and build their own stock prediction, strategy or product on top of it. At the end of the day, I mean, in my mind, the best products will come out of this. I mean, the best, the best trading algorithms will come out of this. The best gambling prediction sites will come out of this. That's the point, right? And so it's kind of opening it up to the network participants to choose what they want to do with the outputs. But in my mind, and this was an inevitability a bit, is what Bittensor is doing. And I mean, I'm very bullish on Bittensor and like just Tau and what this whole community is built for. But in my mind, the best, like, what's the point of building your own neural net that you have to train when a marketplace can provide you a better product and will eventually provide you a more superior product than you can build on your own? And that is inevitably what you'd want, right? So say a miner leaves, they're no longer incentivized, they're not going to get Tau. Another miner will step up and be trained and build a better, eventually over time, a better and better product will be built. So you're just not contributing to it anymore, and you're not going to be rewarded for having that good algorithm or that good neural net at that point in time, right? But that's the whole point of incentivized intelligence, of having this marketplace of competing miners.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You basically, marketplaces are known to be efficient. So if you take the stock market, it is generally rather efficient. But here we take it one step further. So not only we have a marketplace for price prediction, but we have a marketplace for price prediction algorithms. That takes one step further.
Yeah, like strategies around what to do with the predictions. Exactly. I mean, the possibilities are pretty endless. I just had that conversation actually with my own team. The fact that you can not only get probably the best predictions on what's going to occur next in terms of price, but what to do with that, right? Like, okay, that's great, but what do I do with the magnitude of the changes in closing values, right? Like, how do I strategize best for that? And you can essentially train the neural net to know what to do with that, or even build an entire subnet to figure out what to do with that. And so people who want to like privatize this will essentially will eventually like have a worse product because the marketplace will create the best product.
We have some more questions and comments from chat. First is Eginator. He says, your mining business will need to become even more sophisticated if you try to challenge the client. Because not only will you like create the algorithm, but you also have to create the algorithm that uses the algorithms, so to say.
Yeah, I would just imagine it more like this, like, so, you know, stock predictions would be a topic. Stock prediction strategies would be another topic. And so then all the clients are collaborating on passing in inputs on what to do with the outputs and how to best train a network to build strategies. So it's like the input can be placed back out as the output can be placed right back as an input on a different topic, for example. So yeah, it can get pretty sophisticated. But I think the smartest strategies will be the ones that rely heavily on the subnet and the miners to do the work and reduce. Like that's the whole point, right? I mean, and clients are going to pay. I mean, that's going to be part of this model. Is clients pay validators to perform their requests, and that's what also incentivizes validators.
Yeah, and if you look at the market sizes of like how much money goes into stock trading and betting,
it's insane.
Yeah,
just by itself, gambling sites by themselves are massive. I mean, they're tremendously large. So, yeah, I mean, all the market caps of all of these major topics or divisions that are part of time series predictions would all fall under this potential subnet and what it's capable of doing. So again, it's very powerful. I think the applications is the number one interesting thing. I think we're already in talks with some community members that want to build on this. They want to build some of these topics I'm talking about. You can go to head and build out consulting business analytics models on top of this to build out entire consulting businesses. I mean, it's really could be very, very large. So yeah, our number one concentration with something like this, again, we understand that there's specific difficulties. So we're working on just the subnet. Like I work on this full time. So like this is all I'm doing is just building this and making sure I think through all the scenarios, collaborating with the Bittensor team. And so, yeah, we are very serious about it.
That's good to hear. We have a question from Eginator. Whose responsibility is it to bring in the projects that make use of the network in the desired way? / are there any active acquisition efforts going on at the moment?
Yeah, so I mean, I already mentioned some community members want to build on top of this. I think there's going to be naturally a lot of interest, and we kind of want to get. I think a big thing is leaning in. I mean, with being an initial subnet, we definitely want to lean on the Bittensor team and work closely with them to get the word out, to make sure they review everything. I mean, they're the experts. We're still learning, right, about how everything works in the network. It is complicated. So as part of that, I mean, being close with Bittensor and the team, we also want to drive awareness. And so we kind of have a number of projects that want to initially launch, can be tested on the test net, understand how to work with how our subnet works, how to work with our request layer. And so, yeah, that's going to be a massive initiative that we're going to work on, is driving adoption. But it's not something that we can do on our own. It has to be a community effort, in my opinion. And I think it's going to also be in time. So it has to be kind of both.
Yeah, I guess you should be able to also track progress over time, like have a baseline like prediction task, and then you can see it get better, and based on that, you know basically what you can build at that time and hopefully in the future as well.
Yeah, I think we'll have analytics. 100% we'll have analytics on topics, clients usage of those topics. You know, potentially like even error rates from what was the predictions, results, or outcomes, and the predictions made. I mean, a lot of these things we want to make open so they're trackable, so we can see how because of progress. We want to show the progress and growth of the network. So yeah, we will definitely make some things public for sure, so that everyone can see it.
That's great.
But I think the power of having a community is also driving adoption. Like, it's very hard to also be trying to get people on board. I think naturally over time people will be, but in the beginning it could be difficult. So we definitely need. I mean, I think, as I mentioned, there's already community members that already understand the advantage and benefit of having something like this. But for the most part, I think Bittensor's still growing as a community, and so we need to continue to push to have more thought into applications and what could be on top of these subnets.
Yeah, I think like the more people push, the faster it will improve, and the faster it will improve, the more people will join in. So it's hopefully that sort of process that will accelerate.
Yeah, I agree.
Bittensor has a question. Could time series data be somehow linked with the timeline of text data in various media, for example, article, trading, blogs, etc., in order to get a hybrid predictive model?
That's a really good question. So there's absolutely no reason you can't convert data or text into a numerical, like a floating point. So text could be converted, but I think some other thing that we have, there's definitely some things that can be done to be able to convert this information to be processed by miners. But I think that there's some interesting collaborations between what LLMs can do and what this can do, which is also something we're thinking about. So kind of leveraging other subnets to help process information potentially, which would be really cool. So like combining LLMs with time series. Yeah, so there's some interesting collabs there that we're thinking through. It's still pretty vague and high level. We're so concentrated on making sure we get the mechanics here right. But yeah, I mean the possibilities of the data inputted again are pretty endless, because if you and this is why we don't want to say it's specifically just time series, but if you want to predict if you're able to convert data into floating points, which is definitely possible for text, you can predict on it.
I have a question now. What do you think is the biggest challenge right now for you?
Yeah, so sorry, I've been dealing with a gnarly sinus infection, so if you hear me coughing or if I'm nasally, that is why. So the number one challenge, I mentioned it earlier, I think for us is because we are allowing the client so much the capability of doing a lot, right? They're able to pass in training data. They're able to help the network learn. It's really a matter of collusion detection. It's going to be a major part of what we're doing, and setting boundaries and rules as to how everyone works together. And these preset rules will exist and be known because it's going to be public in source code. So really, I think that's the number one thing that I've spent probably weeks just thinking about and working on is how do we best detect, how do we best understand how these various parties will interact with each other, and how can we most how do we provide rules that will most disincentivize, I don't know that's the word, but not incentivize the essential collusion between parties. So that is, and then so that has been the biggest concentration, and where probably most of our time is going to go into is just making sure the health of the network is very high. We want to make sure it stays very healthy, that all network participants understand how the network works and want to contribute in a non-malicious way.
Would I be correct to say that your the biggest part of your role is facilitating so that data from the clients sent to the miners basically gets scored in a fair way where the data is like decent quality and it's on a topic that makes it so that miners can effectively optimize for that type of data and not be polluted by other types of data.
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things that we think through, right? It's data pollution is one. Another one is parties acting as other parties. So a miner acting as a client, a miner being a validator, essentially taking on multiple roles. How do you essentially like how trying to game the system to get more tau is something we've thought through a lot. And so how do we best detect and remove bad actors, or how do we disincentivize those bad actors so they don't even do it in the first place? And so that's an entire kind of game theory you can think of that exists inside of something like this. So we are like really on top of that and making sure that we address that the best way possible.
Okay. Athia also missed a question, I think. Who would host the entry point for the request layer?
Yeah, so initially it'll probably be centralized, and that's simply through us because it's just simpler to do. But I think in time we are hoping to decentralize. So allow we have this request layer, essentially allow anyone to run a request layer. So it's not necessarily dependent on us. It's across any entity that wants to run the layer, and we do things like hashing the messages, making sure that the validators have the hash key, like essentially encryption of the data, making sure that data validity, data integrity is maintained throughout the layers. There's a lot of that that's also thought through. So if it's decentralized and there's like a bad actor, that like entity that wants to become run a request layer, it still should work as intended. A lot of that is also being thought through. But initially, it'll likely be centralized, and then we'll work to decentralize from there, like with plans.
Great. Yeah, it seems like a difficult challenge. It's a very clever solution, I have to say. Like pooling the request, but having everyone score themselves, you can like decentralize the optimization process of the network, and you're really putting the difficult, like the AI development part is really on the miner side, since you probably will, like you will only be scoring data where you know the answer to already. You don't have to actually have predictive models that can predict the performance of the predictive models.
Yeah, all of that is on the validation side, to be able to properly score and understand how the miners did, and the miners are judged based off their performance against each other. So I mean, it's again, collusion or cheating the system is going to be very hard to do, especially with some of the rules we have in place. And so yeah, the goal is essentially have miners compete against each other, in the way that we were hoping, and by doing so they're going to create a very competitive marketplace on any topic and any introduced topic, and even uncategorized topics. If you have enough data, you can train the models to learn how to best approach your data. So it's again, it can be very powerful as long as precautions are taken in how we kind of put together the network to start. And so that's where we're being very intentional as to how we approach this.
That makes sense. Agnator, did I hear right? It's all about time series prediction, or what topic should I learn? Like, what type of algorithms should I get good at to mine on the network?
Yeah, so I mean, most of the data will be time series. So I mean, that's the biggest place to start. You can expect the data to be time series for like almost all, if not all, the use cases. We just don't want to peg it in case in the future someone doesn't use time series for some reason. So, but I would say most use cases are going to be time series based. So, and we'll also be providing example modeling on Hugging Face. Hugging Face, I think that's what it's called. So I'm a little tired, but we'll be providing sample models that people can run and work from there. But I think over time it's going to be the models that are capable of providing the best miners are going to be the ones that are capable of handling uncategorized data really well, right? Kind of having something that can handle generalized or broadly see some data, interpret patterns, and provide what those patterns are back to clients on data that doesn't have a topic. And also the ones that know how to train on specific topics. So if you're capable of training on topics and receiving, data sets from clients and handling those topics in a performant manner, and then also be able to handle uncategorized data sets that don't have a topic, like you don't know what it is, then you're going to be performing extremely well. You have to be able to do both, though.
I could imagine in a way that with time, miners will probably get more and more specialized to achieve better results.
Yeah. I mean, again, ideally, we want to make miners compete on every request. So that is something and also that there's rules around that, but essentially miners are going to need to compete on every request. Is how we're modeling it right now. And so they need to be able to kind of work on uncategorized topics. So if they want to just train on a specific topic and that's it, it's not going to be a great idea. I mean, they can do that. It's not like going to be massively detrimental, but we're hoping and we're incentivizing miners to try to predict on every topic so that miners don't just like, we don't have some requests that just go unhandled, right? Like there's no response. We want to provide some response to, in the beginning, especially to every request, and try to learn patterns to provide back.
Yeah, that seems like a very good approach. It will probably also be like the more you do it, the more data you will get, and the more you will learn how to optimize it further. So we don't actually know like what ideas you will come up with like a few months down the road, really.
Yeah, it could be. I think like eventually, this is going to be really community owned. I mean, the topics, the definition of the topics, the collaboration between clients on those topics to get the best data. From there, they can choose what they want to do with the predictions. But at the point of collaboration is between clients is really going to drive the best results possible back. So that is a big incentive for clients to collaborate. And I think that, again, it's going to be a lot of community. I think it's going to be community owned for the most part at the end of the day, which is my hope. So less involvement from us, less centralization, more community run, maybe, having something like a decentralized request layer, taking more out of our hands and more into the community's hands is really what we'd want to do.
Yeah, everyone feel free to ask more questions. We're gonna continue for 5 more minutes, and I think we're gonna take a short break before Shib comes on. Yeah, here's the question: any collaboration with business intelligence software providers planned?
Yeah, I mean, we don't. Again, like we are simply the subnet and concentrating on creating the best infrastructure possible. From there, it's up to the client, the participants. I mean, you can really build whatever you want on top of this thing. It's like building the iPhone, and you can build whatever app you want on it. Apple doesn't care what really what app you're building. I mean, I guess Apple is not a great example because they are quite centralized. Maybe Google App Store would be a little bit better, but the idea is generally that you have a you have a platform that's just capable of building any app on. If you want to plug in the information or the outputs from predictions into like a BI tool, you could definitely do that. I mean, you could do a lot. In terms of what we're going to be providing from our outputs from what we're monitoring on the network, we are planning on providing that data out because we definitely want to provide information on how well it's doing and how well it's growing and stuff like that. So I'm sure that the Bittensor team will have recommendations on where to put that. I think WAN-B seems like it's been quite popular. I'm unfamiliar with it for the most part, but I can easily catch up on how to do that. But yeah, we are investigating how to kind of also provide outputs so people can see how the network is growing.
Edunator is saying that you should really write that shiny white paper when you finish setting up, so they can go out and spread it, find more people, like researchers, businesses, talents.
Yeah. No, we are. I talk to Const all the time about that. I'm so excited and I'm so bullish on what these subnets, not just ours, but all the subnets are going to be capable of doing. And we just want to contribute. We think that this subnet will be potentially one of the biggest subnets in terms of use cases. And we definitely want to get the word out, and we'll provide as much resources as possible to help the Bittensor community grow, and for everyone to be able to participate in spreading information. So that is something we'll work on. We have a one of our engineers is really good at design and front end development. So I'm sure he's already thinking of like how to brand and make it look nice so it can attract more people. So yeah, we'll definitely work on that once we get there.
Great. Would you like to add something more about the long-term vision? You always said you want it to be community-driven and want to be basically any stream prediction.
Yeah, I would say think about application. I mean, if you're not capable of understanding neural nets, like you're not able to build machine learning, but you just know the data that you like an application you want to build that can predict, right? Again, I go back to say simple fantasy. Like if you guys are into like fantasy sports at all, think of like a fantasy football bot, right? Like something that is I'm into American football, so like think of a bot that can connect into fantasy apps that can automatically figure out the best trends, right? The best players to pick up based off of predictions, the best draft to do based off predictions. So that's just one example, but I'm just saying it's really endless. So if you think of anything that you can build that's based off predictions, whether it's SaaS based, whether it's consumer based, this can be your backbone. And we are going to also build out tools on top of the request layer, by the way, to help you build. So it's not just going to be up to you to figure out how it works. We're going to actually build out tools on top of this to say, how do you plug in? How do you wrap, essentially communicate with the network easier? So it'll be with the request layer easier. So that's going to be another major component. So we want to make it like really seamless, really easy to train, derive value, and use that value in any app.
Yeah, I can imagine there will be like quite a use case for gating models, especially for people not so experienced, to like map to the right topic and right models for different use cases.
Yeah, it'll all be public. It'll be public information, the topics, mappings. Again, and we want collaboration on that. We're planning on building a UI to allow collaboration. That's its own process in itself, but yeah, we are already working on a lot of these designs. I mean, we're trying to move as quickly as possible, but at the same time, we want to be robust in how we think of the mechanics. So it's exciting. It's a giant challenge, but that's kind of what we went for with being so ambitious.
Yeah. So it's been amazing hearing about this. Thank you so much for joining this call. Can we get some thumbs up and claps in the chat for this wonderful presentation? And then we're gonna round off in. Well, we're gonna round off now, so everyone has time to take a few minutes break before the ship call. And yeah, Arrash, let us just say once more, thank you very much.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.